This is the disassembly, or like the removal of the Evo lower to replace it with, in this case, an M4 mag lower. This video will take a bit longer because I tend to remove the entire grip and then the lower. You don't need to remove the handguard, you can, I just don't do it. And for this you will also need a hex key to get through the trigger guard to the screw. But first we need to start off by taking apart the grip. Make sure that you keep the screws safe. There we go. I tend to just leave them in the bottom plate of the grip. Just put that to the side. Make sure you're very careful while removing the cables. You don't want to break them, since you want to reuse them. And then you take out the motor. It is magnetic, so if you put it like next to a screw or something, in this case, it can attract the screws. So be careful about that, since you don't want any screws to get inside. And then inside the grip, if you can see this, there you go. But this height, there are 4 screws. We have to remove those, and 1 on each side. We have the ones on the side, technically not as important for holding the grip on. Make sure you note which ones they are though, so you can put them back in the side. There we go. Take those 2 off, and you go inside. I tend to just loosen each screw a bit first. Oh. Come on. It might be difficult to see if you don't have a light overhead or you're working with a camera. There we go, that's 1. I keep these inside screws separate from the outside screws of the grip panel. They might be the same screws, but I'm just not gonna deal with that. One thing that's important is if you replace the outside screws with different screws, make sure they're short enough, as they do go all the way inside the gearbox and will hit your gears if they're too long. There we go, that's number 4. Put that to the side. Make sure that the cables don't get stuck, and then you can pull the grip off. There will be a bit of resistance because of the cables, so be careful that you don't damage those by just pulling with force. You can leave the cables inside and just leave the grip hanging. For the purposes of this video, I am going to remove them though. Go. Just be careful that you don't bend the tabs at the end of the cables too much, as they can break. Replacement pieces are only a few cents, but it's a hassle because you have to still put them on. Put the grip to the side, and the lower is actually pretty easy. You need a hex key, go through the trigger guard into the screw, and then just unscrew it, put it to the side, and then for the pin, you basically just need to push that through. That's about it. Then you can just pull it off. I tend to just carefully pull downwards. You need to be careful, as these wires run along one of the gears. What I tend to do is just pull a bit backwards until I can free the wires. And there you have the lower. We need to move a few parts over. In this case, we need to move the selectors. Both, come on, focus. Cameras. We need to move the left and right side selectors. They are different, so you can't just switch them around. So be careful about that. We need to remove the spring that holds this up, the bolt lock back, and the pin over. And make sure that you actually take each of the springs for the selectors. They're not technically necessary for function, but without them there's no haptic feedback when you actually turn the selectors. I tend to just pull them out, make sure you line up the selector in the safe position so you can get to the small screw, the grub screw in there. There we go. Loosen that a bit. Same on the right side. Put the right side over there. And then for the pin, it is basically just held in by the release. If you just move that a bit to the right position, it can be difficult the first time you do it. I still have difficulties nowadays. You can often pull them out. There we go. Pin, then the bolt lock or bolt release, and then in there you'll see a very small screw, or a spring. Make sure you do not lose that. I have not found the right size for replacement yet. There we go. That's the part that pushes it up. We go over to the other lower, and we are going to, let me grab this real quick. I'm going to try to use a shim, essentially. What this does is, while assembling the selector, it keeps the selector a bit away from the sidewalls. Let me show you. Because that way it's not going to be too tight. You can put that together by hand. You put the outer part of the selector in. There you go. Then you take inner part, line that up, and then what I do, and what I'd recommend you do if you haven't tried this before, put the shim in between, push the parts together, and then tighten the grub screw. Make sure you do not tighten it too much, because it is just threaded into the plastic. You will break this plastic. And you pull out the shim, check how freely it moves. This moves pretty freely. Put in the spring. And that's the right side done. Repeat the same thing on the left side. Again, putting the shim in. This just makes it so much easier. Turn it around. Put in the grub screw. Or screw it tight. Pull out the shim. It might be a bit tough to pull it out, but you only need this basically this time. You don't need it for anything else. And it is just 2 layers of print. So it's really easy to just reprint it. Doesn't take much time. You take spring again. Make sure that the dented part points to the back of the receiver. That's the part that interacts with the selector itself. Push it down, and then while testing, make sure you hold it down, because if you don't, it will just pop out a bit. It won't just pop out completely and get lost, but still. Okay, next, take the spring for the bolt release, put it in, take the bolt release, line it up. It can be a bit difficult to line it up on the print. There you go. Come on. Can take a moment, especially on like a fresh print that hasn't been inserted into a lower yet, where you haven't done this before. There we go. It is now inserted, and spring works. Take the pin, push it through, and that's all the stuff we need to have moved over. What we do is now turn it around, make sure that the linear gear, the selector piece, is all the way forward, and that both of your selectors are set to safe. And then what you want to do is to try to make sure that while assembling you do not move those gears or the selector piece back or forth in any way, as this might screw with your selector. Go, make sure you don't pinch the wires. That would not be very good. There we go. That is in. And then make sure you push in the pin. Might be a bit tight, but that's intentional to ensure that it's sitting right with the hop up and everything. This one, because it's a fresh print, is very, very tight. There we go. There we go. That is in. And we go back to our screws. Take the one screw that we took out under the trigger guard, and inside the mag wall, make sure it's lined up right with the thread, and then you just screw it in. Sorry about that. Now you basically have the lower on. For the rear section, or for the grip, it is basically just the same way. In the grip, you have a slot right here for the cables. And then you just need to go and get those cables through there. Make sure that while you're doing this, the black cable ends at the front, the red cable ends at the back. Let's go, that's one. And then number two, come on, that's two. Put that back on. I'm going to use my side screws to keep it on the gearbox. Come on, there we go. Take the second side screw. Which side you screw in the side screws should not matter, as long as you make sure that the screws on the side. Then again, the 4 screws, put them into the 4 holes at the side. Make sure you do not drop them into the gearbox, as they are very difficult to, basically impossible to fish out without disassembling the gearbox again. And then while tightening down, what you want to do is put one in the upper right corner here. I'm going to put the next one in the lower left, and basically just go in a cross pattern. There we go. I have lost my screwdriver bit inside. There we go. I really need to work on the autofocus. Then I'm going lower right side. Which sides you do this, or which screws you do in what order is not important, as long as you just go in the cross pattern to make sure that you tighten it evenly and don't tighten the left side or the right side or the back or the front too much first. I am about to drop a screw into the gearbox. Give me a moment. There we go. As I said, bear with me, this is the first time I'm actually recording something like this. Just want to make sure that it's understandable how to assemble this. There we go. That is about it. That is tight. I make sure to tighten the side screws completely. And then you want to put in your motor again. Make sure that the plus on the motor is pointing towards the red cable. There we go. I gotta bend my connectors back. Make sure you put them onto the tab in the right way. I've had mine disassembled a lot of times already, so the tab is not very tight. But you should be, and you make sure you line up the bottom plate of the grip the right way. While holding it down slightly, start threading in the screws so you don't lose them, and you push down all the way. Tighten it down all the way. And that's about it. Now your Evo has an M4 lower. And just like an M4, put in a mag. Use your finger to release the mag. And if you have any funny mags that are M4 mags, you can also do that. But I'm working on an AK lower as well.